We are honored to have him with us today, so please join me in welcoming Mr. Cathy.
Chick-fil-A, I could eat there 7 times a day, where the people laugh and children play. Oh, I'm in love with Chick-fil-A. Suddenly, I need waffle fries in front of me, with some nuggets and a large sweet tea. Oh, Chick-fil-A, you set me free. Kids, get in the van so we can go there today. But their stores are closed, oh I know, 'cause it's Sunday. Chick-fil-A, what a dirty, rotten trick to play. Now I have to settle for Subway. Oh, I'm in love with Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A.
That video here about 2 years ago, and he's had almost 3 million hits on that. So it kind of threw him into some popularity. Little did you know when he composed that little song that would have that kind of fun. In fact, some of you may be on a budget. If you're a student here, I know that you are on a budget. If you want to have a cheap date, just put YouTube up on the screen and type in the word Chick-fil-A in the search button, and you'll see over 1,800 videos that have been put together by a whole wide range of people with probably a lot of different purposes in mind. You can find out how to go through a drive-through backwards. That's on YouTube. You can find out what happens after hours at a Chick-fil-A restaurant. That's on there. And even I'm told there's a video on how to prepare Chick-fil-A at home on your own. So be careful. That could be dangerous if you try that. Let me ask you, since I'm here, how many of you are students here? Can I see a raise of hand? How many are students? Well, Chris Cornelius over here. Chris, that was a trick question. So I want to ask you again, how many of you are students here today? Can I see everyone's hand raised? Thank you, because if you're not a student, then you're quickly moving to a place of obsolescence, because we have to all be students. And if we're going to be, anytime we're north of 6 feet under, we need to think of ourselves as a student. I love to get these magazine subscriptions, and they have these little cards here, and they ask you, to check here of a student. Well, Wilbur, I've got a moral dilemma, because I teach a Sunday school class, and one of my former Sunday school young men, Disco, where are you, Disco? You're back here someplace, right over there. So I teach a Sunday school class for 12th grade young men. He was in my class a couple of years ago. And so I've got to be honest, as I feel like that magazine subscription, am I still a student? Now I'm motivated to check the box, because you get a discount sometimes on the subscription. If you check the box and so forth. But then I teach the Sunday school class. So am I compromising my integrity if I check that box? Well, I asked myself, who did I listen to this week? What books did I read? Whose blog did I check up on this week? Who was my mentor? Did I check in with some people that have really poured a lot into my life? Earl Leonard, Woody Fox, who's here, whether someplace Woody, I'm not sure where Woody's at, but Earl Leonard was one of the founders of this very program, and he poured a lot into Woody Fox's life, and David Salyers and some other UGA graduates. And so I go ahead and check the box that yes, I'm still a student. And so I hope that you're here today, that you're still a student. I appreciate the fact that we were given notepads and so forth outside the door. And it always humors me as a student to see people, or as a presenting material, to see people are taking notes. Now, it looks good to me, and I have no idea what you're writing. You can make a grocery list or all kinds of different things and so forth. So that'd be quite all right with me. Because you want to make sure that you use your time. In fact, you can kind of fake it out now with the cell phones. You can look like you're, texting or taking notes, or with an iPad or whatever else that might be there. So, anyway, I thought what I'd do just real quickly is just to kind of get this beyond us, is tell you a little bit about the history of our business, and then I want to share, since we're talking about leadership here today, a little bit about my own personal struggles that I've had in that regard. Our business got started in 1946 when my father, Truett Cathy, opened a tiny little restaurant called the Dwarf Grill. And it was a tiny little place. That's why they called it the Dwarf Grill. We had either 8 or 10 stools at the counter, 4 tables with chairs, and we had a cigarette machine on one end and a jukebox machine on the other. Now, a jukebox machine, that's an MP3 player on steroids. Basically, it's a big box and so forth. It's there. So we had, that was the little place, and that's where I grew up. My first job was pulling gum and so forth, chewing gum out from underneath the tables. If you wonder where all the chewing gum goes, drop your napkin at a restaurant, look underneath the table, you see a whole rainbow of colors and so forth through there. Somebody's got to pick that gum off the table. So being a short guy, I was always, reaching up to get to the bottom of the table there and picking up things in the parking lot. But it was our little restaurant, which is still open, I'd say it's our 65th year of being in business there, is still there. In 65 years, we've only had 3 general managers of that restaurant. 3 in 65 years. The first was my dad. Then a guy named Paul Richards took it over from there, and he had it here in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. And Kevin Moss has it today. Only 3 in 65 years. So it's very much like if you ever watched the program Cheers, where everybody knows your name. There's a lot of life that goes on, at the Cheers neighborhood bar. Well, that's kind of what we are for the South Side. I like to proudly say that we're much like the Varsity for the South Side of Atlanta. And the Varsity is one of my absolute favorite restaurants. And even though they are very close to Georgia Tech, it's still a great place to be. Nancy Sims is a wonderful entrepreneur. We share in common the fact that we're SOBs. Don't know what an SOB is. Penny, you know what an SOB is. She's afraid to say. But that of course, is son of the boss. That's what the SOB is.
I was going to guess.
And and when you were reading all these titles that I've had over the years, what, tell me your name?
Will.
Well, I told Will, I leaned over and I said, Will, I said, if your dad owns the business, that's what happens if you did SOB. They give you all these titles and so forth over the years and so forth. So I really can't honestly claim all that much competency in all those different titles that I've had. But they had no choice. I mean, I was the years ago, 58 years ago, as of day before yesterday, I was the fastest swimmer in the group. So you'll have to kind of figure out what that meant. Some are a little faster than others. Anyway, I was the fastest swimmer in the group. So I was the SOB in our family. And I have a younger. You can have a lot of continuity in the business and not have these big disruptions. It's thrown Home Depot way back because they didn't have consistent leadership over the years. From Bernie Marcus, Arthur Blank, and they handed it over to someone else, and they took it in the wrong direction, and Frank Blake's got it now, and he's kind of getting it back on track. Same thing's happened with Coca-Cola over the years. So this idea of succession is very important in a business. And some of you are involved in family businesses, I know. And let me just give you a quick little word of encouragement that if you're involved in a family business, it is very tempting to want to get out from underneath your parental patriarch that may be there that's part of Generation 1 and kind of do your own thing. But, get over it. You are your own individual. You're going to think differently. Your own Facebook and Twitter, and they're still trying to figure out how to get into Outlook. And so, you've got all these generational things that are going, but if you can get over it, get beyond that, get beyond your own identity crisis and those sorts of things, then you have an opportunity to really carry on, because you got some wind in your sails relative to the business and the customers, and particularly the intellectual knowledge that's there within that business, because you've been steeped in it all your life. I started going to our little Dwarf Grill restaurant about 9 months before I was born. And so it's just kind of in me. It's just part of my life growing up in a family business. I remember when my brother Bubba, when he and Cindy got married, and then we were at a Thanksgiving, and this was my my sister-in-law's first Thanksgiving, you know, around our table. And we got about halfway through the meal, and she threw her fork down on the plate. She said, "Can't this family talk about something other than chicken? Even on Thanksgiving, can't we talk about something other than, you know, selling chicken on Thanksgiving Day?" And so we just looked at her, and then we all broke out in a big laugh because we knew it's crazy. You know, whenever we come together, we're going to always be talking chicken. And, you know, and so we're talking chicken at home, and then we're talking about family at the office. And so we have this kind of dialogue that's going on. I was chatting with someone earlier, one of the students here, and we were talking about, you know, about your engagement of your head and your heart. The question was about culture. You know, how do you create a culture? She says, how do you create a culture where you got so many people lined up trying to get to Chick-fil-A, get in Chick-fil-A on our corporate staff or being operators? And I said, well, it becomes, I think, because we've tried to pull together this idea of your head and your heart together. That oftentimes we're led to believe in business that you bring your head to the office, bring your head to the work, bring your skills to your work, but leave your heart at home. And high-performance businesses cannot operate like that. High-performance businesses that really that resonate out there in the marketplace, they have a lot of zip to them, where there's excitement and so forth that's going on out there. Those are businesses and organizations where they've brought together both the head and the heart. And they're very interactive together. I mean, there's a reason why God put our head and our heart in one piece of skin. It's because it was designed to be very interactive. I mean, the whole idea of innovation and creativity, you know, obeying those warm-hearted impulses and the zaniness of all this crazy stuff that goes on. I had a conversation with Michael McCatherine yesterday, and Michael called me about somebody that's going to join his staff. He does the social networking stuff and so forth. He's got a guy from Lubbock, Texas that he wanted to bring on board with us. And I said, and he told me about this person, and it kind of felt like the way the rest of a lot of folks are at Chick-fil-A. And I said, Michael, I said, we need some wackos on our corporate staff. And isn't that a great word? That's a new word for you. And I was actually sitting in my blue jeans out in an orchard working on some drip irrigation system, which I love to do when I'm not out selling chicken. I'd been in a camp out the night before in Knoxville, Tennessee. I camped out with over 100 customers. And after being up all night, camping out and partying and line dancing, electric slide, all that kind of stuff, I usually kind of goof off the next day and kind of relax. And so I was out there in the garden. So I'm out sitting on the telephone with Michael McCatherine. I said, Michael, you know, we some wackos at Chick-fil-A. And that came to me when I was talking to Bernie Marcus, who has been a mentor of mine. He was talking about the Georgia Aquarium. He says, I was fed up dealing with all these architects, trying to design this aquarium. He said they just had the same old kind of ideas and stuff. He said, finally, I threw up my hands. I said, we got to find us a wacko. And so he went to find a wacko, and he found one out in California. I mean, where else would you go if you're looking for a wacko? Go to California. They got a whole state full of them out there. I had fun. I said on the radio one time out there, I said, you know, I'm glad to be in the land of fruit and nuts. And there was a guy in a helicopter doing the traffic report. As he said, did he just call us what I think he just called us? They got a lot of wackos out there. But we all need to have, I went on to say, I said, Michael, I said, even though we might not have long hair, we may not have little ear piercings and so forth, I said, there's got to be a little wacko that we wake up within ourselves. And recently I've started taking my trumpet and sitting down with a pianist and playing jazz music during lunch for our staff. And I said, let me tell you what that's all about, Michael. I said, that's all about individuality. That's all about personal expression. That's all about letting people know that you can have fun around here. And you can obey these warm-hearted impulses. You can use these gifts that God's given you. And to be expressive with your heart. That if it's all about the mind, we will never be the brand that we need to be out there with our customers. And so we've got to we got to sing. You know, I've got to sing, so to speak. Now, they'd rather hear me honk my horn, trust me, than actually singing. I used to sing as a kid, but I'm playing more trumpet now. But does that make sense? You know, this conforming deal gets us a lot in trouble. And so there's got to be a little wacko in all of us. I think God created a little wacko in each one of us. So what have you've never heard me talk about that before. That's a new thing. Hey, we're talking about leadership. I brought my leadership toolkit with me. This is kind of a worn out bag here. But this is all a lot of this is a lot of the mistakes that I've made in leadership. And I had to learn how to lead. I had to learn how to lead, and I had a great role model in my dad and Jimmy Collins and others that kind of mentored me over the years. But I just kind of had to get out there like riding a bicycle. I just had to do it. And I fell down and I stumbled a lot. I had to ask for apologies from people, which I still had to ask for an apology from my wife last night even. And so as leaders, we have to learn how to apologize for things that we say and things that we do. We have to have, some of us have more material to work with in terms of a sense of humility than others. And I create a lot of material for myself that gives me good reason to know that I need to apologize to people from time to time. Would y'all be interested in knowing what's in this toolkit here? I can't get into the whole thing, but I want to kick this off by sharing a video with Jonathan. Are you still up there? Let you run this for just a second. This is Jonathan Ware. Jonathan's from Warehouse College, and he and I traveled together. We've been working together for a year. He's going to be migrating to another role within Chick-fil-A in the next 12 months, and he's got to find his successor, which is going to be another Morehouse graduate, by the way. I serve as a trustee there, and so very proud and thankful for Jonathan. But before I want to show you a video that is called "Every Life Has a Story." This is a video that we use to communicate to our Chick-fil-A team members and operators, what is this business all about? What's the big why that we're in business? And I want to share this in the context of leadership, because you might not be think of yourself as a leader or even wanting to lead. And maybe this thought has never occurred to you. Why should you lead? Why should you even develop skills? I'm honest with you, I never really thought of myself as a leader. I never even wanted to be a leader. I'm a good follower. I love to follow competent people. You can kind of kick back. It doesn't require quite as much energy. You can stay very safe as a follower. So quite frankly, it's kind of a cushy job, to sit in the back seat and let somebody else lead. But as fate would have it, from time to time, we have to get out of the back seat. We have to get behind the wheel. And sometimes we have to start leading, even though we don't want to. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm an introvert. Why in the world would God bring an introvert that likes to dig around in the dirt all the time, and put me in the role that I have? Well, that's part of God's humor, I guess. And maybe some of you might be like that. You don't like making speeches and all that kind of stuff. And here I am, an introvert, talking to you. And I enjoy being able to share with you, because I love being able to share the experiences that have happened in my life. But this video that you're about to watch, I'm sharing with you to let you know that in the marketplace of business, we have an opportunity to have a huge impact in the lives of people. I was with some students yesterday, and they said, I'm planning on going in the ministry. I said, oh, well, you must be thinking about wanting to work at Chick-fil-A. Because if you want to be in the ministry, if you want to be in the corner of Main and Main, if you want to be a place where people's lives are coming together, then you must want to work at Chick-fil-A. And here's why. And we have some 7,000 people a day that, or the week, excuse me, there's 7,000 people a week that go to the average Chick-fil-A freestanding restaurant. 7,000 a week. So it really is the crossroads of Maine and Maine that we have, and we have the whole spectrum of society that's with us. Week before last, we had a lady that pulled in our drive-thru. She was in our drive-thru and she was placing an order when her estranged husband pulled up in a car, pulled out a gun and shot her, and she died right there sitting in our drive-thru. We've had 3 murders inside our Chick-fil-A restaurants in the last 12 months from customers that have pulled a gun out on each other. So we're talking about, real life issues that we're talking about here, an opportunity that we have to have a positive influence. So every life has a story. Everybody that comes in our restaurant, the term restaurant, interesting, means a place of restoration. When you think of a restaurant, it's not just about the amino acids and the carbohydrates and the proteins and so forth. Now, that's a part of it, because the ebb and flow of life and the breakdown of muscle tissue is really symbolic of the emotional breakdown that we have of just doing life. People raining on our parade and saying little cutty remarks, demeaning kind of comments. We get real free in our discussion about that, thinking that doesn't, that people just slough it off, when the reality is that those words can really hurt deeply in people's lives. And we need to be aware of that. Sometimes our loose talking and kind of, having fun with something, we'll say some things. And when people come in our restaurants, it's more than just the food. It's the encouragement that they give. And it makes a difference to hear my pleasure. That's about showing people respect. It's just like when we say the Pledge of Allegiance. We put our hand over our heart. We hear the national anthem, we stand up. Why? Because that's an outward expression of an inward attitude. It's a language system. And so we have to teach a language system when these barbaric young teenagers walk in our restaurant to work with us. We have to teach them etiquette. How we're supposed to treat one another. Yes ma'am and no ma'am, and how to pull out a chair for a lady. We have some of the best, pickup line material that you'd ever want to look at for these young men and so forth that's there. All right, so we got this leadership toolkit, got all kind of goodies in here. I mean, all kind of goodies. So I'm gonna let you reach in here and just grab something, and we'll talk about it. Oh, a shoe brush. This is a lethal thing right here. This shoe brush. Funny you should have that. I should have maybe buried that down in here in the deal and all. Our corporate purpose is this: is to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us, and have a positive influence on all that come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And so a lot of what the go-to book for us from a leadership standpoint is not Jim Collins, it's not Peter Drucker, it's not the latest thing from Jack Welch, although we can learn a lot from these people. That if we really want to go back to the source of that, we find that the Bible is packed with all kind of things that are intended to help give you competitive advantage over the competition. I mean, God wants you to be successful. And so he shared a lot of the keys of life. So he's trying to teach leadership to his disciples. And the last thing he does is dining out, the Last Supper. Jesus was really into food service. He was kind of a brother. He's part of the National Restaurant Association and so forth. He fed 5,000 people with the lowest food cost in recorded history. And so when he, the last thing he did, trying to teach leadership, he took a towel, it says, put it around, and he began to, clean the feet of his disciples. And so this shoe brush is symbolic of the fact that leaders have got to get on their knees, and they've got to be willing to shine the shoes of people, all people, regardless. I love this undercover boss thing. We're learning that how important leaders get on their knees, roll up their shirt sleeves, and get out there and get with it. And so that's all these things we can have a lot of time talking about. You wanna select some, find a little goodie. So what you want to talk about? Oh, he pulls out the. Are you a runner?
Yeah, kind of.
You're not a runner?
No,
you probably have run.
competitively.
Somebody chases you,
Yeah.
All right, this is a runner's baton. And John Maxwell, who's written a lot about leadership, he says success is all about succession. And this is where a lot of transition takes place in the business, and we drop the baton. And we drop the baton, that's big problems for an organization. You know, the order went right in my going through the drive-through and on and on. We drop this baton, we're in big trouble as leaders. So we've got to make sure that we hand this baton off. Now, when you hand a baton off, it works best when the person takes it out of your hand. So pull it out of my hand. And good baton handoffs are just like that, where the next generation takes that baton. Because I don't feel good about letting go of it. I don't feel good about letting go of it until he pulls it out of my hand. Otherwise, I risk dropping the baton. You have to be obstinate about it. You don't have to cancel your parents' cell phone subscriptions or that kind of stuff, but obnoxious, you know. But they need to see that you're willing to step up, so forth. How many of you got one of these little deals when you can? Some of y'all get a little prayer one. Hal King, Dr. Hal King, who's over here with us, he heads up food safety, and he looks at bugs underneath microscopes, all that kind of stuff. You learn that you're projecting. This, everybody have one of these? This is a very important leadership tool right here. Let me read you this headline. This is in recent. Congressman resigns over emails. Representative Christopher Lee, a second-term lawmaker, representative of Western New York, is resigning from Congress. This is just last week. Resigning from Congress after release of emails the married Republican allegedly sent through an online personal site. Now, I don't know this guy, never met him. I don't know how many degrees he got. He probably knows how to use a BlackBerry, probably read the Wall Street Journal. But one important leadership thing he messed up with leadership, and that is leaders have to keep their hands clean. Leaders have to keep their hands clean. You don't keep your hands clean, and you'll get yourself in a world of trouble, just like this guy did. You know, and we see this so often. We see it in sports. You know, we see guys that are incredible quarterbacks, but they got a little sideline thing going on over here, and it unwinds the whole deal and costs them mega bucks. They have these little closet things that are going on. And I want to tell you, in leadership, over a period of time, I don't care what's in your email, it'll reach the light of day at some point. And are you willing to take the risk? And so I want to suggest to you that in your leadership toolkit, we better all have these little Perel, and I recommend Perel. It's a nice brand. You use a little product placement too. So Perel's a good one to use. Hey, I got a lot of other things in here. Now, it's a lot of fun to talk about. I got Jif peanut butter here that talks about how important it is to stay fresh. I did this at a talk one time, and somebody sent the recording of me talking about staying fresh. You take the lid off the peanut butter jar, you peel back this little freshness seal, and there's an incredible aroma. It smells like you're in a peanut factory. And you only get one time to smell it like that. It seems like every other time, it never smells as good as it does the very first time. And so leaders have to stay very fresh in their thinking and to stay relevant out there. Anyway, somebody sent this videotape to Smokers, who owns Jif, and I got a letter from Mr. Smoker himself and a case of Jif peanut butter thanking me for endorsing Jif peanut butter and the convenient 12-ounce container. And the next month I got another box in the mail, and it was another case of Jif peanut butter. The next month I got another brown paper box in the mail. It was another kit. I got a whole year's worth supply of Jif peanut butter. So the next year I started talking about Mercedes-Benz. All right, the last thing we want to do, the last little video I want to show you, and if you want to know more about some of these things, I got a lot of other goodies in here. I got a baton in here, conductor's baton. I got a hockey puck in here and so forth. I've got a website where I'm developing some videos on this, but I want to tell you about this slinky. This is my latest addition to that I've just added to my leadership toolkit. And if you don't have a slinky in your leadership toolkit, then you need to add one. And in fact, I brought all of y'all a slinky. And so if you want one, you're going to have to go to the book table and get one, but they're free, okay? And this is a slinky. Y'all remember a slinky? A slinky, a slinky. Boy, the girl, and so forth. So this is a slinky. Let me tell you what got me into this. Last summer, I was thinking a lot about how do you deal with tension within an organization. Because I was getting kind of stressed out. I felt a lot of tension because I knew we needed to do backstage tours, and I knew we needed to be bringing customers behind the counter, and I knew it was the right thing to do. I just knew it was right. Everybody won with that. Customers came out of there raving about, how clean our kitchens were, and we had people back there juicing lemons that never get any attention. And man, you bring customers back there, civilians back there in the kitchen, somebody's juicing lemons. They start juicing lemons faster. They start smiling and so forth. And I was able to see a lot of people that never got any recognition. All of a sudden, they just started. And I saw our kitchens were stay cleaner. When there's company all coming back there, you don't leave a bunch of pots and pans in the sink. You keep things neater all the time. So it was just a win-win. But it was stressing me out that I was talking about this, but I wouldn't get a lot of traction, with our operators and so forth. It's hard to, Pat Lencioni told us last week, he says, it's not change that we hate, it's the transition that makes us so uncomfortable. And so we were going through this transition. I kind of had to, say, dadgummit, we're going to do these tours. And I've already done one already today in Matt's store. So I'm intent on communicating about my practice, how important it is. That's what causes stress. That's what's causing anxiety with us. And so I started just thinking, a slinky. That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm a slinky, just getting all stretched out here. So here I want to tell you here's the thoughts that I've had about how do we deal with stress and how do we deal with tension. And tension's a good thing. You take a slinky that sits here, it's good for nothing. Organizations that are sitting there don't have any stress inside the organization, you better update your resume if you work for one of these organizations. Because they're sleepy, they're lethargic, they're complacent, and somebody's about to eat their lunch. They're talking more about the past. Conversations of the past exceed their dreams for the future. Update your resume because they're in trouble. Healthy organizations will always have some of this going on. Now, as leaders, you got to make sure you don't too stress it out because once you bend this thing, it doesn't work very good anymore. I've never brought myself I used to do this as a kid, but even when as an illustration, I never bend one of these because it kind of breaks my heart to bend one because I know they never work again. And as a leader, you got to be careful that you don't still stretch things out, that things don't work like they're supposed to work anymore. Sometimes you can't recover from such as that. But so here's 3 big takeaways. I'm a Baptist, so I can only give you 3 points, okay? All right, here's point number 1. And I'd love to see everybody with a piece of paper. In fact, if you don't get these points, I've got them conveniently printed on the back side of the slinky here. You want to hold the slinky for me? I got these memorized, okay? So what's the first one? What does it say?
You have them memorized.
I got to remember, leaders
go first.
So point number 1, leaders go first. Your strongest leadership tool you have is your own personal behavior and your own personal habits. That is 70, maybe 80% of your communication skills is represented by what you do. It's not blogging, it's not memos, it's not directives, it's your own personal performance and what you do. Now that's a double-edged sword. So you get all the blame, and you can take credit when things are going right, that if you're modeling it, it'll start to happen and it'll ripple throughout the organization. You can infect other people's behaviors by your own personal performance. So you get this right and just watch what happens over time. On the other hand, when things aren't working so good, don't blame others. Take personal responsibility yourself. And I've got another story I can tell you about that, but where I screwed up big time. I thought it was Phil Razzie down there in the training department. I thought it was those business consultants that were goofing off. And on and on and on, only to realize, You know, it was me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer, and I needed to change me. And when I got convicted of that by reading a book called Quality is Free by Philip Crosby, What's in Any Business, Reflection of Leadership, it was really a releasing experience for me. I realized that, hey, well, I can't change those people. Well, how frustrating it is to try to change other people, but you can't change yourself. And so why don't you start there? And that really works. So leaders go first. And sometimes you have to go alone. You have to go by yourself. But you do have to go. You have to go see a lot of stuff. As a leader, you better have, your passport needs to have a lot of stamps in it. You better zip up a lot of frequent flyer months because you got to go and see a lot of things. One of the things that helps businesses really perform in the marketplace is when you connect the dots, so like stars out there in the sky, and you start connecting dots. I mean, what's a pepper grinder doing in a fast food restaurant? Because we saw how ladies respond to a pepper grinder. You know, they start thinking romance. You know, they start thinking junior, senior prom. They start thinking about, you know, anniversary experiences where they had this guy that walks up with, you know, fresh ground pepper and so forth. So we walk up, you know, with a pepper grinder, offering fresh ground pepper, you know, our customers, and they smile just like you do. And they hate pepper. They hate pepper. They don't like pepper. It has nothing to do with pepper. You know, but it's all about this young man that walks up and says, you know, would you prefer fresh ground pepper, you know, to go with your salad? Get this warm, you know, smile. It's treasure moments. You know, when that nanosecond you can really real and genuine, eyeball, and heart to heart with somebody. And that's medicine big time right there. It's huge big time. Where do you get that? Well, you get that because you're well traveled. And you see a lot of things that are going, you say, I can connect the dots, we can make application. So leaders go first. Second thing is that leaders develop followers. Leaders develop followers. You are intentional about sleeping with the troops because you got to let them know that you care. And you're there with them. And they see your heart. And they see who you are as a person. And they say, I want to be a part of that. And if you have to blog to talk about your heart so people know what's going on, then you become a blogger. And you get into all these sorts of things. Now, I'm not looking for more email. Trust me, I am not looking for more email. But I know that I've got to be very intentional about developing followers. That's why backstage tours are so important, you know, within Chick-fil-A. Because we know that people walk out of there, you know, loaded up all kind of software about things they want to talk about that never knew about our business before. Backstage, by the way, is a big, I think, mega trend that's going on. Those of you that are marketing. You know, people want the real, they want the authentic. They're more interested in the red carpet, people getting out of their car than the main show. They're more interested in Oprah Winfrey, you know, waking up in the morning with dog breath, getting ready to go brush her teeth, than there are when she's all prim and proper. Am I not true? And people want the real authentic. And so leaders are aware of that, and they know, I need to be more open. I need to let my hair down. That doesn't work for me, but it works for some. So we've got to be real authentic. And the third thing, if we do that, and I think it's directly related to this, it's a little demo. There's a third point that's on that little slinky that you got. And this is probably one of the most important points. And that's this. Now I'm going to do this little thing, and I want you to watch what happens. If you could slow this down, slow-mo, you'd see the third most important point was kind of stopping this. But almost made it. Almost made it. This poor little guy right here. All right. So you must not have been as enthusiastic as these other three. Third point is that followers become leaders. Followers become leaders. You want leaders that were one-time followers, that saw it, lived it, breathed it, caught it, got infected with it, and it's deep, deep inside them. That's the followers. That's the new generation of leaders that you want. And from the get-go, as a leader, you and I better be selecting people that have talent to one day be the leaders. If not, you're wasting your time. You need to get great talent on board with you. You know, talent that can one day be the leaders. So if you're going to mentor them, pour yourself into them, you need to make sure you got the right DNA. And not everybody has the same gene pool. Some people grow hair better than others do. Okay, so you want to make sure you got the right DNA that's appropriate for whatever industry or job and so forth you're in. God wants all of us to be successful. But in the hospitality business, we better find people that have a lot of compassion, that have a sensitivity, that kind of video that we showed, and say, hey, that's what I want to be a part of. So I'm going to put it on pause maybe at this point. I don't know if we want to do a Q&A or discussion and so forth, if anybody have any questions. I've got Professor King over here, Professor Falk, and others that are here that can respond maybe for questions that I can't answer.
I'll ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Y'all bring the food out to the table.
Yes. How does that make you feel?
Marvelous.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much. We don't bring every, the dine-in customers that eat inside with us, we can't bring every tray to the table, but we bring a lot of them to the table. And what we find is that when you're as a customer, even though they didn't bring yours, but when you see somebody else's tray being brought to the table, you get a lot of the feel good as if they'd actually done it for you. Like on that pepper grinder deal, we offer fresh ground pepper to a customer. We find that 10 other people saw that, and it gives them the warm fuzzies, almost as if we're offering the fresh ground pepper to them. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we look for that opportunity to be able to serve.
You mentioned your advertising agency.
Yes.
Or how you came up with such a clever idea there.
The cow campaign? That's always a common question. These cows, they're in a Save Our Hive campaign. And we've been working with the cows for about, they've been working with us for about 14 years. And the Richards Group in Dallas, Texas is the agency that manages that cow campaign. And it's been won a lot of awards. Cows have finally figured out how to do TV and do a good job with it. So you've seen the TV things with the cows and so forth. So we're going to keep it going. In fact, we're going to milk it till the cows come.